President Donald Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden quickly deteriorated into near chaos last night. In a series of heated clashes, the two sparred over the Trump administration's handling of the pandemic, the integrity of election results, and how the president's Supreme Court picks will shape the future of the nation. Now, there's a new CBS News Battleground Tracker. The debate format left 69% of viewers feeling annoyed. Just 17% say they found the debate informative. Ed O'Keefe has more.
After the debate last night, just 17% of people in our CBS News Instant poll said they found that debate informative. Today, Trump campaign aides say the president delivered a strong, commanding performance. Biden campaign aides say he offered strong ideas. This is Cleveland, the home of rock and roll. Last night, they rocked, they rolled, they rumbled.
How you doing, man?
It took less than 10 minutes for the highly anticipated debate to turn ugly.
Donald, would you just
don't know?
And it stayed chaotic throughout the night.
The question is,
Justice, radical left.
Would you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
President Trump tangled not only with Joe Biden, but also with moderator Chris Wallace, who pressed him to denounce white supremacy groups.
Who would you like me to condemn?
Proud Boys.
And right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
Members of the misogynistic far-right group that promotes violence clearly were listening. They quickly added Mr. Trump's words to their logo. The candidates swapped insults all night.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
The president repeatedly referenced Hunter Biden, whose work in China and Ukraine during the years his father served as vice president has drawn scrutiny from Republicans. But a recent GOP congressional report found no actual wrongdoing on the part of the then vice president.
Just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it?
The two sharply disagreed about health care.
He wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
How to defeat the coronavirus pandemic.
Folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID?
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000.
And the economy.
You got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison.
You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety.
The president denied a New York Times report that he paid $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017.
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax.
Show us your tax returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it.
Mr. Trump also wouldn't commit to accepting the election results, referencing potential fraud without evidence.
If I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that.
Under pressure, Biden wouldn't say if he supports adding seats on the Supreme Court.
You're going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question.
And distanced himself from liberal environmental policies.
So do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I support
that means you
the
just
Biden.
lost the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Biden's campaign says they raised nearly $4 million last night between the hours of 10 and 11 o'clock, their best online fundraising hour to date. Today, Biden boards a train here in Cleveland for a whistle-stop tour of eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania. The president holds a campaign rally tonight in Duluth, Minnesota. Henry and Vlad?
All right, Ed, thanks very much. For more on this, let's bring in Caitlin Huey-Burns. She is also in Cleveland. Caitlin, there's a lot to get to. Just sort of as an overarching theme, I wrote down yesterday night after I finished the debate, four of the themes that I saw echoed by the current president of the United States. One, did not condemn white supremacists, did not endorse mask wearing, did not agree to peaceful transfer of power, and asked his supporters to intimidate voters at the poll. As you just heard in Ed's piece, when the president was asked to denounce those white supremacists and militia groups, he instead told the far-right extremist group Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. What message is the president trying to send?
Hi, good morning, Vlad. With a question like that, that is the easiest softball kind of question that you would expect a president of the United States, no less, to be able to knock that right out of the park. This is the kind of question that in debate prep you would pose as a really easy way to kind of get into things. And instead, the president did not do that. Instead, he continued to do what he has done over the course of his presidency and in 2016, which is to be defensive about his own stances. And I think the really important part of all of this is that you don't have to be an astute political observer to know that the president has no problem going after people when he wants to. He wages criticisms against pretty much everybody, especially through his favored medium of Twitter. And so to not be able to denounce white supremacists outright on the national stage has been consistent with a lot of his statements throughout the course of his presidency, but one I think that garnered a big headline of the night.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said consistent with other statements because, often people will focus on just one thing that was said. But he was also asked about why racial sensitivity training was canceled. And he said he canceled it because it was racist. The desire to ensure equality and equity in the workplace, that training was racist and was being taught by people who hate America. So that is one topic down. Another topic. Election integrity and a peaceful transfer of power. The president once again discouraged the use of mail-in ballots, citing without evidence there's widespread fraud in the election. I want to play a little bit of the sound. Let's take a listen.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what.
So I'd like to point out two things. People are already selling T-shirts that say bad things happen in Philadelphia and good things, which is about as American as you can get. Also, just to clarify what the president said, that he was talking about a satellite office for mail-in ballots where people could go to register for, an absentee ballot, drop off absentee ballots. It's a small office. It is not a place that allows for people to observe. Election observers, according to state law, that happens on election day when people go to the polling booths. That's where election observers can show up. You can't show up and stand around in a small office in the middle of a pandemic all day long. There's nothing that allows for that. So that's just to clarify when he was talking about bad things happening in Philadelphia. But, there's another issue here. When he tries to discourage people from voting, it's not just people who were voting for the Democratic Party. There are also Republicans, too, that might be concerned about the validity of their vote. How might this ongoing argument made by the president actually affect members of his own party?
Well, first, Anne-Marie, only good things happen from Philadelphia because that's where you are. So let's get that record straight. But when it comes to voting, there are some really easy fact checks. This was a segment that came at the end of the night, but I think it was one of the most important sets of exchanges that we saw because election integrity is at the center of this election. Remember, we've been talking about and reporting not only about who people are going to vote for, but how they're going to vote. And everybody is facing a learning curve because we're in the middle of a pandemic. States are trying to figure out how to hold safe elections, and the president has been consistent in trying to sow discord about the integrity of the election, doing so against what we've been hearing from some Republicans, which is don't leave votes on the table. There are voters for Trump that are going to vote by mail, especially here in Ohio, where you don't need an excuse to vote absentee by mail. And it's something that a lot of people are already doing. 1 million people have voted did so far in this election. So to denigrate voting is to do so at your own peril. I think the president also needed a couple of fact checks when he was talking about this issue. First, he was saying that basically all these absentee ballots are just flowing out. That is not true. Only in some states are you sent an absentee ballot. In most other states, you have to request one. Now, I think it's really important to kind of take a step back and realize that, yes, there are going to be some issues with mail-in voting and absentee voting. Where I am from in New York, there are already issues with this because this is a state that is just not used to doing this sort of thing. So that is going to be something that will be scrutinized. But that does not mean that this is a rigged election, that this is intentional, that there is any sort of mail-in fraud or fraudulent voting. The president had a whole commission about fraudulent voting after the 2016 election, which he won. They didn't find anything and had to disband.
All right, Caitlin, let's talk the subject of the Supreme Court. Former Vice President Biden focused mostly on issues that could potentially come before the court, health care and abortion, rather than relitigating the 2016 fight over the nomination of Merrick Garland by then President Barack Obama. Here's what the former Veep had to say.
The president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy.
So understanding, Caitlin, that Democrats really will not be able to stop the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Are answers like this from Vice President Biden likely to do anything to energize undecided voters?
Well, this was going to be a clear message from Biden, this kind of acknowledgement that maybe there isn't really anything that Democrats can do to stop this nomination from going forward, but to focus on an issue like health care, which has proven to energize Democratic voters and sway some of those voters who in the middle. It was an effective strategy in 2018. I think this was also an opportunity for the president to talk about an issue that unites the Republican Party and also appeals to, or could appeal to, some of those voters in the middle. The first line from the president in last night's debate I thought was a pretty effective one, which was elections have consequences. And if you win elections, you get to decide things like who the next Supreme Court justice is, or at least nominate that person. But instead of focusing on that for a duration of time and really trying to not only rev up the Republican Party base, but speak to those voters who kind of fell off the Republican Party in 2018 because they didn't like, or said they didn't like, the president's behavior and rhetoric. Did any of that conversation do anything to sway them? I think last week a lot of Republicans were really hoping that this Supreme Court pick could energize their party and try to kind of coalesce Republican voters around the president, around an issue that they care about. And instead, that was kind of missed throughout the rest of the debate.
All right, Caitlin, we could talk to you about all number of other things that they discussed, but we're going to keep it moving because we're going to hear from other voices. Thank you very much.